You want me to guess? I don't know.
No. Sounds really familiar.
Great moving object.
Yeah, it's a genetically modified organism.
Genetically modified organism.
Is it a genetically modified organism?
Exactly, Brandon. Genetically modified organisms are organisms that have been changed through biotechnology. They can be plants or animals that are engineered with DNA from bacteria, viruses, or other plants and animals. And about 80% of conventional processed foods are genetically modified. This typically refers to foods in aisles other than the fresh produce.
Here, take my sweater.
GMOs were developed in the 1900s and spread amongst agriculture industries as a faster way to feed a hungry world. In September 2012, French scientists concluded the first long-term study of the effects of GMOs on rats. They found that it caused many tumors and killed 70% of the females much earlier than their expected 2-year lifespan. In 1994, the first ever genetically modified fruit or food was actually created. This was the tomato, known as the Flavor Saver tomato. In 1997, it was unaccepted because of the weird flavor and problem with shipping and preservation. As a result, it was recalled and brought out of production. Additionally, the first ever genetically modified potato was called the new leaf potato, and in 2001 it was also rejected because corporations did not want to use them in their products. In your own kitchen, commonly genetically modified foods are canola oil, corn, papaya, eggs, sugared foods, and some dairy. While there have been no direct tests on humans, it is suspected that GMOs can cause serious health risks. They are also found in vaccines and flu shots and have been suspected, as I said before, to cause things like kidney, prostate, liver, colon, and breast cancer, as well as thyroid, brain tumors, and potentially can cause Parkinson's disease, infertility, birth defects, and autism. They may also potentially cause something called Morgellons disease, which can produce sores, rashes, and sharp fibers beneath the skin. In order to be cautious, consumers should take notice of popular companies known for using GMOs.
There are 5 steps to genetically modify organisms. First, the desired gene must be located in the genome. Once this happens, it is extracted from the nucleus. Then, the whole sequence of DNA is cloned multiple times so scientists have lots of opportunities to isolate and extract the one specific gene. Once the gene is isolated, the gene is designed to be able to function in the organism that is going to be modified. The gene is then inserted into the target organism, usually by using a bacterial vector. Once the gene becomes established in the individual organism, it is bred back to elite lines. This is done with the filial generations as well, to make sure the transgenic trait becomes established in the organism's genome.
For the genetically modified foods, there are no human studies, and this gives a lack of short or long-term studies on the effects of humans. There has been some studies shown that this negatively affects the immune system and inflammation in animal studies. Other studies have shown that there are DNA changes that may result in genetic mutations. Also, there is not enough information to determine if there are detrimental or positive effects on its recipients. However, 13 countries throughout the world have grown GMO crops. Additionally, the FDA and the USDA have deemed over 40 plants safe for commercialization, including corn, soybeans, cantaloupes, tomatoes, and many more. Soybeans and corn make up the most amount of GMOs in the world and account for 82% of the world's production. 74% of the crops are modified for herbicide tolerance, while 19% are modified for insect pest resistance. 7% are modified for both. Bacillus thuringiensis is a Bt gene in corn and other crops. This bacterium exhibits crystal proteins that are lethal to larvae that put themselves in these crops. This is injected into corn to produce its own pesticides. This can work against various insects, including the European corn borer. Dr. Putzai's research included animal studies with GMO potatoes. His results demonstrated precancerous changes in the intestinal tracts of rats. It also demonstrated other negative changes to the liver, testicles, and brain. Through this study, it had a negative response to GMO studies.
So, what do people think of GMOs? Well, for those who argue for the case of GMOs, they argue that they grow faster, they grow in larger quantities, and they could possibly be the key to world hunger. Because once there's more crop available, the prices will go down and there's more available for the human population. They also believe that GMOs could be the key to less pollution because some GMOs require less nitrogenous fertilizers, which would therefore decrease the nitrogen in the atmosphere, therefore lowering the pollution. Lastly, people also argue that soil, water, and energy conservation would result from the common use of GMOs because they do take less space to grow more and they require less resources than normal crops. As much as people like GMOs, there's an equal amount of people who dislike them. Now, this may be because so far there have been no human trials for the long-lasting effects of GMOs, so we really have no idea what the long-term effects could be, and we know, at least for the rats and the mice, that they developed cancer with numerous tumors on their stomachs, and they also they didn't live to their natural lifespan. Additionally, some people worry about the loss of diversity if these GMOs start overtaking the natural crops. Lastly, the ethics with GMOs are especially concerning, not only with the agricultural aspect of GMOs, but also with the possibility of being able to genetically modify like an actual organism, like a dog or a human.
While I do understand the value of using genetically modified organisms in food in order to create and produce food faster, I also do think that the FDA should have regulation on the foods that are being put out there with genetically modified organisms in them, because people should definitely be aware of what they're putting into their mouth and be able to take the proper precautions in their food choices.
The discovery of genetically modified crops seems to be a cautious discovery because there aren't any human studies, and I find that to be dangerous in incorporating it into one's diet. So with more studies, I would feel better about it, but as of right now, I'm hesitant about its success.
Though I do think GMOs are a good idea for traits like larger crop yields and disease resistance, I do feel that we should know when GMOs are being used or like what genes are being transformed, because some GMOs may be modified with traits from organisms that are like allergens, and an unsuspecting consumer might take that and then have an allergic reaction or have an upset stomach or something, a poor reaction to it. So I think we should know what GMOs are.
Although GMOs hold the potential to solve world hunger and obviously end poverty and a lot of food issues, I don't really know how I feel about that yet because we're not 100% sure that they're safe, and we don't know what the long-term effects could be. And in the trials against the mice, not even humans, but the mice, they got stomach cancer. So even though they have good short-term effects, I don't know how I feel about the long term.
Jake, do you know what a GMO is?
Yes, I do. It is a gluteus maximus oscillin.